All right. I think we're live. All right. Somebody give me a shout. Let me know. Well, a shout, text, or anyway. Not a text. I'm getting a text. Okay. Thanks. Anyway, let me know that if you can hear me okay and if the video is showing up okay. That way I know and we're doing well. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way while we're waiting on that. So, again, my name's Chris. If you haven't been here before, this is Slightly Rednecked weekly live broadcast. Thursday evenings, 7 o'clock Central. Most of the time I'm here. Last week I couldn't do it. I had work. Work was too busy. I just couldn't get away in time. So we had to cancel last week. But this week we're back. Most Thursday evenings, 7 o'clock Central, we're here. I don't have a topic planned out. I have it's just the time to interact with everybody during the live broadcast. So if you've got a question, you got a comment that hasn't been responded to, because I haven't been good about responding to comments, join us here, and most likely I will get to it. I do my best to answer every comment that comes in on the chat, the live chat itself, and respond to that. So if you see, every once I'm going to miss one. So if you see me answer a comment that came in after yours or a question that came in after yours, ask it again, and most likely I will get to it. The only things I ask: be polite, be family friendly. Don't start cussing at people, calling people names, be rude, or any of those kinds of things. We can debate. We can have, disagreements and debate, but we can be civil about it, be friendly about it. None of this stuff's worth getting hateful or any of that kind of stuff around. So let's get into it. Marty was first. Good job, Marty. You made it before I even made it. So most of the time we get people in here first, but you made it first. So there should be a prize for that, shouldn't there? I don't have one, but there should be a prize for that, sure. And 12 Gauge made it second. Says, hey, Chris, Marty, and all from Mountain View, Arkansas. Good to see you guys. We're practically neighbors. And Marty's from West Virginia. Let's see. There's Blessed with Pets. Good to see you. And you guys can hear me good. All right. Good deal. Jesse says, good evening to everyone from Iowa, listening in tonight while getting Ruse ready to move to freezer camp. I need to do the same thing. 12 Gauge said, missed you last week, Chris. Yeah, I missed you guys too. I would have rather been here. It was pretty busy week at work last week. Pretty busy this week at work too so far. So I'm looking forward to the weekend. Hopefully the weekend doesn't get too busy. All right, Donna Heath, good to see you. And Verna, hey, Chris says, how has your week been? It's not been bad. It's just been busy. Work's been super busy lately. So it'll calm down eventually. Busy's not necessarily bad. It makes things go by a little faster, makes you feel like you're really, earning your paycheck. So that's not a bad thing at all. And I do work for a good company. I like the people I work with. So it's not all bad. It's just been incredibly busy and kind of hectic. All right. Hello to you, Little Ridge Farm. Let's see. Manuel, I think it is, says, curiosity question. How do you come up with the catchy opening of your videos? How do you come up with the catchy opening to your videos? I don't remember exactly how I came up with that. I just, my whole idea behind producing these videos was to help beginners get started. And since I live in the city, I kind of thought, well, that's probably going to be who most of my audience is, which may not be the case. But so, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, you can raise quail. You can do a lot in a very small space. Raise quail, grow a garden, raise some meat rabbits. So you've got egg, meat, and vegetable production in a very small space. Now, I do have much bigger lot than I think most people do because I own the two lots right behind my house, the side-by-side ones right behind my house. But, you can do all of this in a standard-sized backyard or even in your apartment like Verna does with the quail anyway. So that was kind of my idea behind it. I just kind of thought about it, and that's what I came up with. So if you don't know my background, I've been in the call center business for about 30 years, ever since I got out of high school. Dating myself a little bit, aren't I? But so real close to 30 years. And for a large portion of that, I was a trainer and a script writer and all those kinds of things, writing the scripts that, hi, how you doing today? I'm calling on behalf of this company, that kind of thing. And so I kind of have a knack for some of those things, I think. But anyway, let's get back into it. Andy says, what do you think about using chicken layer feed for your layers? There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to feed them chicken layer feed, you can do it. I've used it in a pinch and my birds are fine. I don't know that it's the absolute best feed for them because they're not chickens. They are a little bit different, have a little bit of a different dietary requirement, but it's not hugely different. So they will survive on that if that's all you can get. If it was me and you can't find like a game bird starter, I would look for like a turkey starter or a turkey grower. That's much closer, I think, to a quail or a game bird starter. or a game bird grower that you can find, but it'll work. You can get away with it if you want to use that. Hey, Ed, good to see you. Says, hey, Chris, want some sandbags for your greenhouse? Just the bags? Yeah, I thought about getting sandbags for the greenhouse. I just haven't done it. I've got the rocks and the logs and bricks and things like that kind of stacked around it right now. I could probably do better next year, but this year I haven't planned on it. But anyway, Dina says, have you thought about selling the feathers? Yeah, I actually saved some feathers up one time and thought about selling them, but I just never got around to doing it. I don't know if there's a market for that or not. Didn't look into it enough. So who knows? Maybe there is. I would think maybe some people, especially like fly tires and stuff, might really like that, but I don't know. All right. We got a couple people talking to each other. I tend to skip over those comments. They don't bother me at all. It's fine. I'm just going to skip over them to get to the ones that are addressed to me. Spartman says, sure glad the nasty winter storm went down in your area versus staying up here. Yeah, I don't know where up here is, but yeah, we're supposed to get some more winter weather tonight. A couple inches of snow through about midday tomorrow. And then it's going to be 60 on Sunday. And it was like 55, almost 60 yesterday. Crazy. But I think we're about done with it. We're moving into spring. Gary says, hello, Chris, and all the rest of the family, or the Quail family and friends from North Carolina. Good to see you, Gary. Verna says, yes, Chris, I raise them still in my bedroom. Hey, my Shire's here. I didn't even see you, Zach. I'm sorry. I skipped right over your comment. But good to see you. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Robin says, well, I'm not in the city. I'm way out back. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I'd honestly prefer to be outside a city a little bit. It's just those properties are hard to find and they're expensive. So I live, in town. But it could be a lot worse. I don't live in a very big town. I mean, it's big enough. There are some conveniences to living in town, especially the town I live in. All of our like grocery stores and all that kind of stuff. It's real close, really. I can go to the grocery store and be back in 15 minutes, if I just need to pick something up. That's pretty convenient. Got good internet access. That's always kind of tricky when you live out in the country. I can't just go out in my backyard and shoot a gun, but, well, I guess I could a pellet gun, but, there's trade-offs too. And I live kind of towards the edge of town, so nobody really bothers me. Nobody cares if I got quail or rabbits or any of those kinds of things in my backyard. There are city ordinances, but nobody's really enforcing them unless you're becoming a nuisance and people complain. They just got better things to do. They don't really care to come by and pick on some guy that's got, a dozen quail in his back. Well, I got more than that, but you know what I'm saying? A small quail hutch in his backyard when none of the neighbors care. None of the neighbors are complaining at all. So, that helps out. I did get new neighbors right next door. An older couple. The guy that lived there before moved, sold his house, and it was an older couple that moved in. So, I made sure that I'm always pretty friendly with my neighbors anyway, because I'm just that kind of guy. I like people. I like to have good relationships with all my neighbors. So, I made sure to introduce myself to them right off the bat, tell them, I've got, quail and rabbits back here. And she said, oh, I grew up in the country. This is fine. So they're perfectly all right with it too. And it works out pretty well. Anyway, Helen from Brisbane, Australia says, I made a crack key hydroponic setup this week. Thanks for the inspiration. You're absolutely welcome. I've got onions and asparagus seed that I started up here. So it's up underneath the grow lights right now. They're not on. And I've got my lettuce that was in the crack key down on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that back there, but we've already harvested a couple of harvests off that and it's already grown back and we can do another big harvest off that. And I haven't had to replace the water in it at all. It's just sits under the lights. That's it. It works out really well. Blessed with Pets says, so I bred both my does for the third time, and I'm hoping they have their litters because I haven't had any success yet. Since this could be strike 3, should I look at replacing them after this if they don't kindle? It might be a good idea to go ahead and replace them if they don't. I usually give my rabbits about 3 tries. If you have successful breeding and there's no baby rabbits produced, then yeah, it's a third time. I think I would probably look at getting some new ones. Let's see. Adarsh says, hopefully I got your name right. I don't know if I pronounced it right or not. Says, I'm successful in selling quail chicks in Indianapolis. Helped a lot of people get started. Craigslist helped me. Yeah, I've sold a few on Craigslist here and there, but I just don't do it on a regular basis. Manuel says, were you able to find the Tamuk rabbit you were looking for? I've found some, but they're all like the closest one is about a 2.5 hour drive for me. And I just have not had time to get away. It's been so busy. Weekends are just tied up with, barely get anything done that I just haven't had time to make a, 5 hour round trip to go get rabbits. But hopefully I will here sometime soon. And I may give up on Tamucks and just go with a good pedigree New Zealand or silver fox or who knows what, My problem is it's not so much that, I'm not really just dead set on getting Tamucks necessarily, but what I do want is pedigrees, and I want the same breed of pedigrees so that whenever I breed them, the offspring will be pedigree. That's kind of my idea, or purebred anyway. All right. Spartman says up here in northeast corner of South Dakota. I bet it's chilly up there tonight, but thanks for joining us. Andrew says, hey, I watched your video about the jalapeno quail. You said that you ended up baking them for 40 minutes. Can you talk a little more about that? And specifically, how do you know they're done? Let's see. I don't remember. Excuse me. Let's see. What the jalapeno quail, was that what did I do with jalapeno quail? I'm trying to remember. Was that the one where I took the breast off the quail and put a piece of jalapeno in there, I think, wrapped it up with bacon and baked it. Baked it for 40 minutes. I basically just baked it until the bacon was done, if that's what you're talking about. Other than that, just like chicken, I mean, check the temperature. 165-ish is about what you want. That's really it. Quail if you're just cooking just quail, you can cook it pretty quick. Get the temperature up real high and cook it pretty fast. But I don't remember exactly. You're gonna have to remind me a little bit more about what I did. Give me a couple of the other ingredients I put in there. I'll try to remember and tell you more specifics on that. Hopefully that answers it, though. I mean, quail's not too bad about, not too sensitive about it. It can be overcooked just a little bit because it's real. I mean, they're really pretty small piece of meat. So if you're wrapping it with bacon, like I did, and I've done several times, then I'm trying to. Sorry, I got distracted trying to think. Maybe that wasn't the video, but either way, if you're wrapping it with bacon, cook it till the bacon's done, 30 minutes, whatever, and it's going to be fine. If you're not cooking it with bacon, just measure it out at 165. You'll know it's done, and you don't even have to worry about that too much. Quail has a very small, very, very small risk of salmonella. Almost impossible for them to carry salmonella. It's just you don't have to worry about it too much. So if you're a little bit on the underdone side, it's not a big risk like it is with chicken or pork or some of those other things. All right, Dina says, Vernon, my incubator is in mine and the rest is in my basement. Your incubator's in your bedroom and the rest is in the basement is what I think. So, yeah, that sounds like a better option to me. I don't know if I'd want, quail roosters crowing in my bedroom at all hours of the night. Thomas says, good evening, Chris. Hello from Southeast Tennessee. Enjoy all your videos. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. My Shire, Zach here says, to be as self-sufficient as one can be, what do you think the 3 or 4 easiest things to do, i.e. garden, quail, rabbits, etc.? Oh, boy, that's a good question. I think it probably depends on your situation, how much room you have. And I don't know that you can be like, if you had to just pick one of those, quail, gardening, or rabbits, boy, that's a tough one. I would say, let's tackle these kind of one at a time. Let's go quail or rabbits. If you had a very small space, you had to pick only one of those, I would probably go with quail because you can just, you can set as many eggs as you want to. Whereas with rabbits, you can't just, twist their nose or pull their ear or whatever and have them have more babies. So, it's much faster to ramp up with quail and get huge numbers out of them. So that's probably a benefit of quail, and that would probably win out over rabbits. Now, quail versus gardening, boy, that's a tough one. And I think that depends a little bit on your space too, because you can produce a ton of food with gardening, but you do need more space than what you would need with your quail. So I don't know the answer to that one. If one's better than the other, I would suggest doing both or all three if you can. It's nice to have that, a little bit of difference or a little bit of variation between the quail and the rabbit. The rabbit produces enough fertilizer for the garden. It's just, there's nice things to having all three of them. But if you could just do one thing, or you wanted to focus on one thing, I'd almost say it'd have to be gardening in a way, if you have the room to do the gardening, because you can produce a ton of stuff from the garden, and you don't have to worry about buying feed for it or any of those kinds of things. You don't even have to buy fertilizer for your garden if you have a good compost pile, or like we have a city compost facility where I can go and get compost for free. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. And you can do a lot in your garden. And if you can that stuff up, you've got food all year long without having to worry about providing heat and water and food and cleaning cages and, all those kinds of things that go with it. So yeah, gardening would probably win out in that sense. But I think you really, you want, if you're going to be self-sufficient, you need, or as self-sufficient as you can be in a small space. I don't guess that's the question you asked me. You said the 3 or 4 easiest things to do. So yeah, gardening, quail, and rabbits are the easiest by far. The only thing I really can't produce, and we do, I run a spring of meat chickens in the spring as well. So the only thing we really can't produce is dairy or beef. But I hunt, so I didn't get a deer last year, but I hunt. So usually I'll get a deer, and that will provide us with our beef. I mean, it's not exactly beef, but it's very similar. That will provide us with pretty much all of our beef for the year. And so that's pretty much knocked out with that. And then, dairy. So we have to buy dairy. We don't have a dairy. You could do goats for dairy. You can do those in a pretty small space, and I think that would probably be worth it in a lot of ways. But as far as easy to go, quail, rabbits, and gardening are even easier than goats. So that's that. Hopefully I kind of answered that. You caught me, you put me on the spot, and I don't know if I came up with a good answer or not, but that makes sense. Jammin' Mike says, hey, I just came back from feeding and watering the rabbits. Good deal. Where are we at here? Adarsh says, sold 600 chicks overall in 3 months. Everyone is from local. I could sell any last year. I couldn't sell any last year. This is a lucky year, Chris. Well, it sounds like it. Congratulations and well done. S. McKee says, is there some reason that you're not all clicking on the thumbs up? Talking to everybody else. Thank you, S. McKee. I appreciate that. Texas Caternix Quail Connection. Boy, that's a name. Says Gary from Cypress, Texas. I don't know where Cypress is exactly, but thank you for joining. And then we got Chris Derry Roselrod from Arkansas. Good to see you too. Thanks for coming back. Let's see. Spartman says currently we're at 22, looking at low of -1 tonight, and winds around 20 miles per hour. Yeah, that's pretty chilly. We're not going to get that cold. I think we're going to drop down into the low 20s, and snow is supposed to be starting up around midnight. All right. Jason says, with wood being so expensive, do you think pallet wood would work and be safe for the quail? Yeah, I think it would. If you can find enough pallets. I mean, pallet wood, in my experience, is pretty cheap wood. It doesn't necessarily hold up all that well over time. Sorry, I'm just checking, making sure those aren't important messages in there. Okay, they can wait. Excuse me. Where was I going with that? Pallets. Oh, yeah. Pallet wood's, it's pretty cheap wood. Cheap. It's free. Usually you can get pallets for free. It doesn't necessarily hold up that well when you break the pallets down and take the wood off. If you found a way, and then the pallets are awful bulky if you just build with the pallets whole without breaking them down. So I don't know that it's the absolute best option for them, but yeah, it would work. It'd be safe for the quail. I wouldn't use it with rabbits, at least not where they have direct access to the wood, because they're going to chew on it. And there's probably some kind of, chemicals and those kinds of things, but that's not really an issue with the quail. They don't chew on things. Quail are probably more sensitive as far as respiratory goes than rabbits are, but it's not like the pallet wood's putting off fumes or any of those kinds of things. So I think it would be fine if that's what you could get. And, I think it'd work until you could get something different anyway. That's for sure. Okay. Sorry. Gary says, what's your thoughts about raising pheasants? Pros and cons. I don't really know. I haven't ever raised pheasants. I don't know a whole lot about them. Not an expert on pheasants, so I don't know that I can answer that question to you. As far as pros and cons go, I don't know for sure, but I don't believe pheasants are huge egg producers. So I think I think they're once a year producers on eggs, aren't they? Or maybe they just don't produce as many eggs. They're not as heavy. I may be completely wrong about that. But I think their grow out rate's also a lot slower. So if you wanted to produce them for meat, you're not going to get as good of results as you would out of quail. Same thing with kind of like pigeons. Pigeons only lay a couple of eggs and then hatch out their young, and it takes a while for them to get older. Otherwise, they'd be great meat birds too. They're basically just doves. They are doves, rock doves, basically. Well, let's see. So anyway, I don't know that I can answer that question for you. That's just my initial thoughts on pheasants. But like I said, I really don't know that much about them, so I may be completely off base. 12 gauge says quail would be my first choice in self-sufficiency. Yep, that makes sense. I can see why. Yeah, Verna says I've even seen some people use pallets to use whole pallets to make a shed for their rabbits or their quail. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that done before too, and I've seen some pretty good results. Of course, I think most of those people that do that are probably getting higher quality pallets than what I can get for free, sitting out next to a dumpster. At least they look like it to me, but I may be wrong. Adarsh says, have you heard about Phoenix 6100 incubator? I'm not familiar with that one, no. Says the control unit is not working, thinking of adding 2 wafers instead of the computer because it has the same 2 fans and heated coil. Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that one for you necessarily. I know Zach did some reviews on I'm just looking down here to see if he's still here, and he is. He says he didn't mean to put me on the spot. No, it's all right. Put me on the spot. I don't care. Anyway, Zach did some reviews on some incubators, and one of them at least had the wafer style thermostat on it, which takes a little bit, from my understanding. They work really well, but at the same time, there's a little bit of a learning curve with getting them to work. He can probably tell you more about it than I can, but I don't know. I'm not familiar with that incubator, so I couldn't answer that one for you. If the control unit's not working, though, you might try to contact the company. I had a similar experience with work stuff, just keeping up with it, making sure it's not getting out of hand and not something I have to jump off here and take care of. And I don't so far. We're good. Where was I going with that? Oh, you might contact the company. I had an issue with my, I just use a little giant styrofoam incubator for now because it still works. I haven't had to replace it. But where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. The thermostat went out on it one time where it stopped working. And I contacted Miller Manufacturing, which is a company that makes the little giant incubators. And they just replaced the thermostat, sent me a brand new one in the mail in like 2 days for free. Didn't ask me like when I bought it, if it was still in warranty, none of that kind of stuff. Just sent me one. You might try contacting them. You never know. They may just replace it for you and fix it. All right. CS McKee says, J-Man Random has a YouTube channel where he made quail cages using 4-tier shelving units, the metal cage ones. I'm doing the same thing. Got his playlist, and go to his playlist and click on quail. There you go. That's a good idea. I've seen people make rabbit cages and things out of shelving. I don't see why it couldn't be used for a quail cage. I'll have to try to look that up and see what I can find. Let me make a note of that one. Okay, we'll go back to that later. Jesse says, hello from Colorado. I started with goats and now I'm adding quail and rabbit. I did it backwards. Well, not necessarily. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just, if you're in a small space, I like goats quite a bit. I would like to have a goat or a couple. You don't really want just one. I'd like to have a couple of goats. I'd like to have a milk goat and, anyway. But that's a lot to add. That's a lot more work than just quail and rabbits. And, that's one thing that, living in city, it's a little bit harder to get away with. So I don't at this point. Blessed with Pets says, can horses live in a stall? My uncle has a pasture on their shared land and it could go on sometimes, but it couldn't ride every day. I just wanted a horse. I would build a single stall where it would spend most of the time in the stall. Yeah, I don't know that much about horses. I've been around horses before, but not regularly. I really am not a horse person. Don't know that much about them. But that doesn't sound good to me to keep them in the stall most of the time. Horses are big animals. They need pasture. They need to be able to move around. And I don't think it would be a good quality of life to keep it locked up in a stall most of the time. 12 gauge says, pallets usually have staples in them too, but they can be removed. Yep, they can. You're right. Let's see. Texas Caternix Quail Connection. I just had one hell of a hatch from my shire, my first time with them. 47 of 54 so far. Crazy. That is awesome. Doesn't surprise me. My shire is a great supplier, and you're going to get good hatch rates from them. Hey, we got Tony from Toronto. Good to see you, Tony. Thanks for joining. Let's see. There's some talk about goat's milk on here somewhere. I missed it, I guess. Oh, that's Jesse saying, or Jess, sorry, saying you raise mostly Kiko for meat and milk. Yeah, I like goat's milk too. Goat cheese is the best. It's fantastic. Let's see. Dina says, I think it's Dina, isn't it? Hopefully I pronounced that right. Says, heat treat is best to use. No worries about chemical issues. Oh, heat treated pallets. Yeah, that's a good point. You can get heat treated pallets for sure. Beardsley Madness says, my mom, let's see, my mom bunny had babies. How do I handle them? If mom is so mean, I've been having to hold her down if a baby is out of the nest box. She's so protective and looks like the babies are really are fed really good. Yeah, that's always a little bit tricky. There's no reason you have to handle them. But if you need to get in there, I had a doe that was like that would go, just completely change her temperament and get super aggressive when she had babies in there. And then I've had other does that were like a little cranky and hard to handle until they had babies, and then they were just calm as could be. It's weird. But anyway, when I had that doe in there, what I would usually do is put the nest box between, because my nest boxes I can move around the cage. So I might put my hand over here, and when she went that way, I'd move the nest box over there, kind of pin her so I could grab a baby, throw it in the nest box, and then just move out as quick as I could. It's a little tricky. I don't know that there's a better way to do it. What you're doing doesn't sound like it's a bad idea, really. 12 gauge says, I love my little giant. Been using it for like 15 years. No issues. Yeah, mine works great. I know lots of people don't like them. Lots of people talk bad about them, but it's working well for me so far. All right. Cali Quail Keepers. How are we doing on time? Good grief. 20 minutes in already. 25 minutes in already. All right, Cali Quail Keepers says, hey, Chris, devastated. I lost an 8-week-old to stasis. Any suggestions? Have you dealt with this condition? Thanks. I haven't had to deal with that, and I'm very sorry to hear that. It's always rough when you lose animals that you've been raising. It's not something that I've had to deal with. So, as far as suggestions go, let me check out something here real quick. See if I've got a. No, I don't have that. I had a document one time that had some, list of, how to treat things like that, but I can't find it right now quick and easily. So I don't know that I have a good suggestion for you on that. I'm sorry. Darsh says, the company's long gone. I bought the sensor, but it went to 200 and burnt out. But if it works, I can fit 5,000 quail eggs. Holy cow, that's a lot. Gary says, I love quail, but I'm going to try pheasants too. They lay from March through August. Had to get, I don't know where I got genetic out of that. Had to get North Carolina propagation license. Now I'm a licensed propagator. Awesome. Yeah, nothing wrong with pheasant. I just don't know a lot about them. 12 gauge says horses need to be able to run. Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. That seems right. Marty says, hey, Chris, I bought a buck and a doe 2 weeks ago, and this past Sunday, my doe had 7 kids while I was at work. None survived because I knew she was pregnant. I think you mean you didn't know she was pregnant. When can I rebreed her? You can rebreed her really anytime you want. You said this is last Sunday. I'd give her about 2 weeks probably to recover from that, and then go ahead and rebreed her. But you could theoretically do it anytime you wanted. I just think it's probably best to give her just a little bit of time to recover. So 2 weeks is probably about right. And then go ahead and rebreed. And sorry that you had that issue. That's always it's hard to tell when a rabbit's pregnant. There's nothing that really tells you that's a pregnant rabbit. It's getting ready to have babies. So it's not your fault. It's, totally understandable how you can miss that. James says, hello from Idaho. Thanks for all your informational videos. You're welcome. Thank you for watching them. Let's see, Dina, has anyone used weeds like sheep sorrel and such as treats for your quail? I've fed them several things, and I'm trying to think. I don't know about sheep's sorrel, but I've used wood sorrel before and fed that to them. They seem to like that. Clover, they'll eat little bits and pieces of that. But no, I don't regularly do that. It's definitely something you can do. It's just not something I do on a regular basis. Tara says, hello from Southwest Missouri. Hey, I'm in Southwest Missouri. Just wanted to say I enjoyed your informational videos. I started with rabbits in Thanksgiving and my Shire quail about 6 weeks, and you've been helpful. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for stopping by and letting me know that. Earl from Louisiana, good to see you. 12 gauge says, I pull all kinds of grass and weeds for my quail, and they love chickweed. I imagine they would like chickweed. All right, Heather says, finally got the roof framing up for my rabbit shed. Awesome. Always good to get things done. Let's see. Blessed with Pets says, well, by most of the time, I mean, it would spend nights and rainy days in the stall, but I could turn them out on the pasture, or I could let them in the large pen with my uncle's horses. I'd only want one. Well, I mean, it depends on how much room, but if it's if they can be outside most of the time, during the days and things like that, then it's probably okay. If they can be outside and have a little bit of room to run around and stuff like that, it's probably fine. Yep. Verna's got a good suggestion. It says sorrel is great for quail. Most weeds, if edible, is great. Quail love good greens. Yep. I think you're probably right on that one too. Little Ridge Farm says, would it be okay to fill a few new raised garden beds with quail and rabbit droppings and let it sit a year before growing in it, or should soil be added as well? It's a good question. Just filling it with manure and letting it set is probably not going to be the best. It's probably going to go anaerobic, start smelling real bad, not really break down super effectively. So I think what would be a better option would be to mix that with some kind of carbon material like dead leaves, wood chips, some of those kinds of things. Mix it all up and then let it set for a while and kind of break down. And then you should be able to plant right into it. No problem. You could, alternatively, add soil or add, I wouldn't just go dig up soil, add compost, finished compost, mix that all together. That would be fine as well. You could even do something like fill a garden bed like halfway with soil or with straw, and then mix some rabbit and quail manure in with that, and that will break down and turn into some pretty good, rich soil for you. But I don't think I would just fill it with rabbit and quail manure and let that sit by itself. I don't know. 12 gauge says, do not put fresh quail poop in the garden. It's too hot with ammonia and will burn up anything it touches. Well, when you say too hot, it's not the ammonia that's the problem. It's nitrogen. Nitrogen is what makes them too hot. But you're on the right track. It is too hot to really use fresh. Most poultry manure is, like chicken. In fact, pretty much most manure in general is too hot, too high in nitrogen. Rabbit's a good exception to that. Goat, I believe, is a cool manure as well. And alpaca would be another one that are cold manures. But most everything else is pretty hot manure. And you don't want to use manure from any kind of predator, like dogs or cats or any of those kinds of things. Don't use that in your gardens. There are risks of transmitting parasites and diseases and things like that. All right. Hey, Peg from California. Good to see you. Let's see where we're going. And Dina says, yes, you're saying it perfect. I got the name right. Good. I'm always worried about that. Fruits and Berries says, hey, Chris, I'm on day 10 in the Nurture Right 360. First time ever with quail. I have to keep the incubator machine at 102.5 to have a correct temperature of 99.5. My extra humidifier is life-saving. Sounds like it. Yeah, sounds like I haven't used that incubator, so I can't speak to it, but sounds like you're doing the right thing. If you've got, you're setting when you say you have to keep the incubator machine at 102, you're setting the thermostat to 102. Zach has said this before, and I tend to agree with him. I don't know if he's still here or not, but, Zach from My Shire Farm has always said all incubators lie, and he's on the right track with that. I agree. It's always good to have extra thermometers, make sure they're accurate. but to test your incubator and know what the temperature actually is, not just what the incubator says it is. And it sounds like you've done that, so I think you're on the right track. And good luck with your hatch. I hope it works out well. I'm sure it will. All right, Jess says, my Shire eggs are due for lockdown soon. My incubator is averaging 99.7. Is it okay to lock down on day 14, or should I wait to do it until day 15 or 16? This is my first hatch. Yeah, you can. 14's okay. It's not that big of a deal. You don't have to be that strict about it. You can do it on day 14, day 16. Get much past day 16 and you're kind of pushing it because you may have birds start hatching any time now. But yeah, 14 is perfectly all right. All right. Yeah, Verna says best day is 15, but a day earlier, a day late is okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. James says, how do you fix splay leg? That's a tough one. Honestly, most of the time you don't, but you can try to fix it. I wouldn't put a lot of effort into it. Splayed leg can be caused by a couple of different things. Most of the time, it's going to be your late hatches. When we're talking about splay leg in chicks, small, like just hatched chicks, it's usually your late hatches, which is usually related to like a low temperature in your incubator. So they didn't develop as fast. It took them a little bit longer to develop, a little bit longer to get out of the egg. It could be a humidity issue. If you have really low humidity, it can be very difficult for the chicks to break out of the egg. And, so all those things come, one of those reasons right there usually causes for a chick that's really weak when it gets out of the egg. And therefore it doesn't get those tendons developed in its legs by stretching them out and walking around on them. And then it's all splayed leg. They're all spread out like that. Now you can try to make a little brace for it, basically to keep its legs underneath them. Some kind of brace, or put them in like a shot glass, or something like that that forces their legs to be underneath them, and leave them there for like 24 hours. Sometimes that'll fix it if you can catch it quick enough. But honestly, most of the time it's difficult to fix. And I find that most birds that have splayed leg, they just never really get over it. Not always. Sometimes you can fix it, but not always. The other thing that might cause splay leg would be a vitamin deficiency, which would be like, I want to say it's vitamin E and thiamine are the two that would cause splayed legs. But that's usually not going to be in your newborn chicks. That's going to be an older, as the birds start to age and then they develop splayed leg, something like that. And it's pretty rare, especially if you're feeding, a good game bird or even a chicken feed to them. That's going to be a rare thing. All right, Terry says, can quail eat sunflower seeds? I imagine they could. I don't know if they're going to get a lot of, I don't know if they're going to eat a lot of them, but I don't see why they couldn't eat a sunflower seed. I think it would work okay for them. 12 gauge says, yeah, that's right. It's nitrogen. Thanks, Chris. That's what I meant. Yeah, no problem. You guys, stick around long enough. You're going to hear me say something backwards from what I mean eventually too. Blessed with Pets says, do you have any indoor animals other than a dog? No, I mean, I guess my wife, but that doesn't really count as an animal, does it? Don't tell her I said that. It's just a joke. No, I don't have any indoor animals. I'm actually the animal. She's the civilized one. I don't have any other indoor animals. I have my dog and my dog only. I have kept other animals in the house. I've kept, I used to keep reptiles back when I was younger, in my early 20s. I had snakes and lizards. I've kept rats and mice. I've kept all kinds of animals. But no, at the moment, I don't have any indoor animals, and probably won't have any more indoor animals anytime soon. Gary says, good evening, everyone. Managed to make it, at least for short. Yeah, well, you're here. That's all that matters. We're glad you're here. You still got some time. We got like 20 minutes left. Katrina says, hey, everyone from Gilroy, California, harvest our older grow out rabbits, 18 of them. That's a lot. First time. The hopper popper worked great. Also just sold 62 3-week-old quail to deliver on Sunday. Awesome. Congratulations on that. I'm glad to hear that it's working out well for you. I don't have a hopper popper. I thought about investing in one, but haven't done it yet. All right, Todd. Hey, Chris, tried breeding our one doe, and she wouldn't live for our buck. Now she is so freaked out, she doesn't want us touching her, or took her to him. Oh, took her to him. Oh, boy, I'm sorry to hear that. She'll probably get over that pretty soon, but it does sound like, she may be just a little bit shy, and maybe, I don't know if she was too young maybe at the time or something. Hopefully she'll get over that. You can get her bred, and, it won't be an issue anymore. Who knows though? Rabbits are different. They all have different personalities, and there's not just necessarily some of them, take to it right away. My my last doe that I got rid of, she was always a little bit grumpy, a little bit hard to handle, but she took to breeding really well, no problems. I lifted every time immediately for the buck. But anyway, as far as her not lifting for the buck, that's a pretty common thing. I don't know if you're asking how to overcome that. But that's a pretty common thing, especially with first-time does. You just have to kind of usually just keep trying. I'm saying morning, night, 3 or 4 days. Usually they'll lift on about the third day or so. Not always though. Sometimes they're a little bit stubborn. They just kind of hunker down in the corner somewhere. One thing I've heard to help them get over that is to put them in a pet carrier, put them in your car, and drive them around the block a couple of times, and then put them in with the buck. I don't know why that would work, but there's so many people that just swear by it that there's got to be something to it. And it may be something worth trying as well. But just give her some time. She'll probably calm down and, hopefully let you get back to, handling her again without being so freaked out. Katrina says, plus my computer. I don't know if this was something else. Plus my computer is being mailed back to me, hopefully fixed. Things are looking up. Yeah, this was a continuation. Well, it sounds like it. Lots of good things going on. I'm glad to hear it. Congratulations. My Shire says, oh, there he is. Zach saying incubators lie. Chicks try to die and your job is to manage the loss. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. Tiffany says, crap, I'm late, aren't I? Well, we don't keep attendance here. It's okay. Let's see. Katrina talking to somebody else. Jess talking to Verna. Everybody's talking to Verna. That's all right. Blessed with Pets says, my mom really has her heart set on hatching some chicken eggs. What do we do with the roosters? We don't really eat them. Put them up on Craigslist, offer them up for free to somebody that will eat them. Well, they won't necessarily tell you they'll eat them, but that's probably what they're going to do if they're coming to pick up roosters. But you never know. You may have somebody that wants some roosters just for their hens, to protect their hens and things. Nikki says, Chris, in your little giant, do you have problems with this time of year holding consistent humidity? When I just put a little water, it jumps to 65 to 70%. I'm in central Missouri. I don't do a lot of incubating during this time of year, but you're right. Yeah. What you're going to find when you add water into your incubator right now, and there's a couple of things about that. When you first add water, yeah, your humidity is going to spike up, but then it'll level right out. That's just normal. That's going to happen most anytime you do that. The other thing to remember about this is that humidity is not gauged by the volume of the water, but by the surface area of the water. That's what's going to affect your humidity. So if you have, like I've said this before, but like this soda can, for example, this is a very deep can of soda, but it's only got a very small top on it. So this part right here is what's going to dictate the surface area. Whereas if I had a tray, let's say this is a tray that's just as deep as this phone is, and I filled that with water, that's going to produce more humidity than this entire can of soda would, because the surface area is bigger, if that makes sense. So don't think I put just a little water in there, so I'm not going to put any more in there and the humidity spikes up. If you need to add, one of those trays in your incubator full of water you need to put water in one of those trays to get the humidity where it needs to be. And again, it'll spike up, but then it'll level back out. You might as well fill the tray all the way up. That way you don't have to keep putting water in, because it's not going to change. There's going to be the same amount of humidity whether you put half that tray full or the tray all the way full, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that's what you were asking. You may already know that, and don't be offended if you do. But yeah, usually you're going to see a spike in humidity, and then it will level out, and it won't be a big deal in the end. Don't stress about that. And when you say it jumps to 65 to 70%, that's not too high. That's okay. Mad Mutt says, I breed silver fox rabbits in Massachusetts, I think it is. Nice. It's a long way for me to drive, but if you were closer, I might think about getting some. Little Ridge Farm says, my metal building has no windows in it. Should I put some in it for the quail or just straight solar lighting? It's up to you, man. However you want to do it. If you've got lights that can run all day and you don't want to bother with putting windows in a metal shed, then do it. Yeah. If you want to put windows in it, I would think it maybe just having a window in your shed may not be enough light to get your quail to start laying, because typically you're not going to have just a window in the shed is not going to light up the whole shed all day long. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of parts that are in pretty dark shadow most of the time, but you can do it however you want to. Yeah, Vernon knows I don't take attendance here. Heather says, that's kind of the joke that my husband and I make about each other. Funny. Fruits and Berries says, Chris, thanks for the earlier response. It was Zach I heard of. Oh, wait, it was Zach I heard of it. Should we be as a prepper and buy extra feed in case our nation was to be short on feed supplies? I think it might be the right thing to do. I don't remember what we were talking about that says it was Zach and I heard of it. I don't remember what we were talking about back then. But either way, should we be as a prepper and buy extra feed in case our nation has a big short on feed supplies? I think it might be the right thing to do. Well, if you think it might be the right to do it, I'm not going to tell you to do it or not do it. I buy, I try to keep at least a couple of extra bags of feed on hand. That's not necessarily, I'm not worried about everything falling apart and not being able to get feed. I mean, definitely supply chains are a little tough right now, and there's lots of things that are a little bit hard to come by. But there's only so much feed I can store before it's going to go bad anyway. So if it gets to a point where I can't get feed anymore, having extra feed on hand is only going to extend that problem for just a little while. It's not like I can buy a year's supply of feed and keep it all on hand and have it not go bad. I don't know if that makes sense. So I don't know that. I mean, it's kind of like, everybody, like the price of gas is going to go up, 20 cents tomorrow, and everybody runs out to fill up their gas tank. Well, it's not worth it. I mean, I've got a half a tank of gas. I can only put about 10 gallons of gas in my gas tank. It's not worth it for me to take extra time to drive to the gas station to put extra gas in my tank, 10 gallons of gas to save 20 cents a gallon. It's only $2. I'm saving. It's not really worth it in the end, if that makes sense. So I'm not telling you not to do it, but I just don't know that there's really I don't know if it's really worth it, if that makes sense. James says, do you know anyone who has successfully been or redeveloped broody quail? I've known people that have had broody quail for sure. Yeah. There's lots of people that talk about it, and it seems to be the most common factor in those is people that keep them in like aviary style settings where there's lots of room and the quail are basically on the ground. That seems to be kind of the most likely factor that's going to cause them to go broody again. Hey, Witch Doctor, good to see you. Heather says, have you gotten new rabbits yet, or are you still rabbitless? Yeah, still rabbitless right now. I've got options to go get some, but they're all like I said earlier, 2.5 hours away is the closest I found. And I just haven't had time to make a 5-hour trip on a weekend to go get them, because it'd be 5-hour round trip, probably more like 6 by the time I get there. Because if you guys have ever met me in person, you probably already know this from my YouTube channels too. But if you've ever met me in person, I can talk, and I'll stand around. It wouldn't be just a simple pick up the rabbits, thanks very much, appreciate it, and leave. I'll sit there and talk to them for an hour probably and about nothing, just because I'm a talker. That's what I do. Katrina says, my rabbit popper came with my rabbits. I think they were probably resourceful enough to make their own for a lot cheaper than they sold. The 18 rabbits were from 3 does. Awesome. Yeah, I thought about making one too, but they're really not that expensive to just buy one. But either way. Blessed with Pets says, how do you tame skittish goats? I want to train my dog to be nice to them, but I can't even approach the goats. My Great Pyrenees is 9 weeks old. I'm scared of the goats with her because last year one of the goats, there's more to it, attacked my Yorkie last year, broke her jaw, and she had to be put down. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think I'd worry. I mean, there's a big difference between a Yorkie and a Great Pyrenees. So I don't know that I'd worry too much about the goats bullying the Great Pyrenees. My neighbor had goats, and they would, jump up and headbutt the dog, but it didn't bother the dog. The dog thought they were playing. I mean, a Great Pyrenees is a pretty tough dog. Now, it is young right now, so you're going to want to monitor them while they're around each other. But I think it's probably going to be just a matter of There's a word for that. I can't remember. Anyway, just having the dog around them a whole lot. That's going to help. That's going to help calm them down. They'll get used to it, desensitized, I guess, and make sure the dog's not being, aggressive or too overly playful with them, freaking them out. Those will be the things that you would want to be focused on. I'd keep it on a leash around him for quite a while until they get used to him and he gets used to them. And then you should be good. Tiffany says, or even a spare room if that is what you want to do. Taking that literally, I've got some chicks in my home office and my labs like to nap in there as well. House is full of animals. Nothing wrong with that. Terry says, that's a nice greenhouse. I think I will get one next year. Yeah, I'm hoping it holds up well. I mean, so far it looks like it will. I don't see why it wouldn't. We had a really small one that I actually put in a YouTube video several years ago, and it held up really well for several years. And then this last year, I left it out all year long, all through winter, all through summer, and it eventually did start to fall apart. But it took a long time, and it held up through several storms, and it was just a little bitty tiny one. So I think this one's going to hold up well too. And if it does, I'm thinking about getting another one and trying to, extend that out a little longer. So I have a 40-foot greenhouse basically. All right, where are we at here? We got 10 minutes left. What the Quail Farm says, hello everyone. I missed your last live. Well, I wasn't live last week, so you may not have missed it at all. But we're glad you're here tonight anyway. Sorry, I'm trying to get through comments from other people to get to the ones or comments to other people. Hey, Whiskey Tango Farms is here. I missed you guys. Where are you? No, maybe that's what the Quail Farm you're talking to. Got distracted. All right. Blessed with Pets says, also, if anyone is near Shreveport, Louisiana, we're looking for some good goats, mostly young does. My dad is willing to spend a decent amount, but we need to get our pen secure. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm not anywhere near and I don't have any goats, or I'd help you out. Good luck, though. I hope you find some. Let's see. Jesse says, or Jess, I keep wanting to call you Jesse. It's Jess, says that humidity question was good. Thank you, Chris, for answering that one. I have been doing it often because I didn't know better. Well, you're welcome. I'm glad I could help then. Yeah, that's one of those things I think probably most people know, but I can clearly remember when I figured that out. It was like a big light bulb went off my head. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why I never thought of that earlier. So I figure somebody else has got that question and has probably got the same thing. I don't know what snert means. Oh, I see what you're talking about now. All right, well, we'll just ignore him. Katrina says, I'm dog sitting and our buck were I'm dog sitting and he and our buck were nose to nose through the wire. The dog play bowed and the rabbit wanting to play. Parmesan, the buck, ignored his request and a dog was at the rabbit's old house. Okay, that was hard to follow for me. I get it. You had a dog that was wanting to play with the rabbit and the rabbit wanted to play with the dog. That's interesting. My dog would eat a rabbit. Well, he wouldn't eat him. He'd just kill it. Nikki says, that was the main thing. If it was okay, it holds a humidity for 2 days. That was the main thing. If it was okay, it holds. Oh yeah. Yeah. As far as it being okay to like 60 to 70% humidity, that's fine. Don't worry about it. How long? Okay. This is Alan. How long till will feed go bad? It depends on how you store it. If you can keep it dry, it's going to last a lot longer. If it gets wet, though, it doesn't last long at all. It will go bad. And I'm talking about if it gets condensation. So if you can keep it in a dry, cool place, it's going to keep a lot longer. And you can keep it for, I would say, months and months. I don't know what the time span is. But if you don't have ideal conditions, if you can't keep it away from mice and rats and other rodents, and if you can't keep it dry, then it's not going to last very long at all. All right. We got a couple people talking to each other. Katrina says, I've had broody quail. Yep. There's another one. Tiffany says, Chris, when's it a good time to move Copernic's chicks outside? I have JMFs. It depends on kind of what the climate is in your area and what time of year it is. I've had really good luck in the summertime when the nighttime temperatures are not getting down below like 60 degrees, 70 degrees at night. Moving birds out at about 3 weeks old. And in the dead of summer, when the nights aren't getting down below 70 degrees, as soon as I got the chicks acclimated to 70 degrees, which is about 10 days, 11 days old, they can go outside. They're fine. In the wintertime, I always want to wait, when it's getting colder outside, I always want to wait, try to acclimate the birds that, to a little bit, at least a 40-degree temperature before I move them outside and below freezing. So that's usually going to be somewhere around 4 weeks old. But, it just depends. All right, what the Quail Farm says, I'm hoping to have my quail start laying eggs again. I don't have any supplemental lighting for them, so they stopped laying. Yeah, mine did too. I don't have any lights on them right now. I just kind of let it go this year. But they should start back up here fairly soon. I mean, we're getting close. When the days start getting to be about 13 hours a day of light, you should start getting eggs within a week or two after that. Yeah, Verna's saying about another month. I agree. That's probably about the right timing. Mr. Skeptical says, Skeptical, there we go, got it out. Says, I just picked up my Cornish cross dibs. I raised 16 last year, and they're delicious. Yeah, they are. We didn't do, I don't know how many we did. I can't remember. Leadership Help Desk. We did enough. We've still got some in the freezer. We're not done with them. Leadership Help Desk, says the wife. I was thinking the same thing, LOL. Yeah. Katrina says, Chris, are you going to use the greenhouse poles as a trellis? I think that would be a good use of space. Yeah, I don't thought about that. I'm not sure. It depends on what I grow in there. That's over my area where I grow my tomatoes, my cucumbers. So yeah, I mean, there's a good chance cucumbers will grow over it. I don't know. Yeah, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Plant the cucumbers right along the poles, and they would grow right up over the top of it. And if I grew them on the right side of it, they might be able to provide some shade for the tomato. I don't know. We'll see. How are we doing on time? About 4 minutes left. Heather says, my dog is terrified of the rabbits. The wiener dog is a lethal murderer, though. Yeah. Dachshunds, sure. They are rodent dogs. That's what they were bred for. I can believe that they would be vicious to a rabbit. Mr. Skeptical says, do I need a thermometer in my greenhouse? I'm starting all my seeds in one to get a jump on the season. Well, unless you have a heater or something like that, I don't know that you really need a thermometer. I mean, what are you going to do with the information? Unless you're worried about it getting too hot. I mean, that might be a good, you can kind of keep a thermometer in there. When it starts getting too hot, you could open up the windows or the doors or whatever to vent it out. That would be the only reason. I don't bother with it. I just kind of guess at it. And so far, it's worked out well for me. Katrina says, rabbit ignored the dog. In its previous home, they had a dog, so it didn't stress him out or anything. Yeah, my rabbits always kind of ignored my dog, too. They don't ever seem to notice him too much or worry about him. All right, Yvette, good to see you. Says, hey, Chris, just getting on. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but good, I think. Verna says, I'm getting 35 eggs a day. Yeah, that's a lot of eggs. And Tiffany says, thanks for the info. I have 7 hens and I get sporadic laying. I even have lights on them for at least 14 hours a day. I have them on layer feed. Any suggestions? Let's see. Light is the biggest thing that's going to affect whether your birds are laying or not. 14 hours a day is the right amount of time to have light on them. But I do find that even at 14 hours a day, if your birds are outside this time of year in North America anyway, well, we're actually getting into the time frame where they should be laying pretty regularly now. What I have problems with is like the shortest days of the year, December through about mid-January, late January, somewhere right around in there. Even with 14 hours a day of light, egg production definitely slows down at that time. So you might check what you're feeding, make sure that there's enough, protein. I find a little bit higher protein level seems to work out well for egg laying. I like to feed at 30%, but I've heard people have really good results with somewhere around 20 to 22%, somewhere right around in there. Make sure it's not too much lower than that. That's probably not the problem, though. If there's some kind of stress factor on them, that's going to affect their egg laying. So if they're getting moved around a lot from one hutch to another, that stresses them out. If there's a lot of like predator pressure, something that's coming up and pestering the hell out of them, excuse my language, that sounds bad, but you know what I'm saying? Something like cats coming by, coyotes, whatever, something come by and pestering them and stressing them out, that can affect your egg laying as well. So those are a couple of reasons why you might have some issues with them. Other than that, you might just be patient, give them a little bit of time, and maybe they'll probably start up at any time. Yvette says, hatch 8 of my chicken eggs, 6 out of 8 hatched. That's pretty good. Congratulations. Gary says, 99, all enjoyed tonight. Well, thank you. I enjoyed it too. I'm glad you showed up. Let's see what the Quail Farm says. Chris, what kind of plants are you going to grow in the greenhouse? Probably, lots of flower starts. I'm sure my wife's going to be using it for that. I'll probably do most of my, early starts in the greenhouse. So I plan on letting it be tomatoes and peppers and the cucumbers and, squash, just the normal garden stuff. Those are most of what I start early. Everything else pretty much gets started in the ground. And cucumbers, I usually start in the ground as well. I don't transplant them out, but I'll start them in the ground under the greenhouse and maybe get a little early start on them. We'll see. If they don't start, I've got extra seed. I can start them whenever time comes. But I don't start a whole lot of other things early in the house or in egg, not egg. I saw egg on the chat and distracted me in, containers inside and then transplant out. There's not much more than just tomatoes, peppers, and what was the other one I was talking about? Oh, squash. Squash would be another one I would usually start a little bit early. But there's not a whole lot more than that for me. Let's see. All right, we're right at time. Let me just kind of skim through. Hey, there's a Psycho Word from Vegas. Good to see you. Yeah, Tiffany, they think you're the predator, huh? Well, could be. Hopefully that works out, though. You'll get eggs out of them pretty quick, I'm sure. And then one more question here, and then I'm going to get out of here real quick. Steven says, did my first harvest of rabbit meat. Been watching many of your videos for advice. Just wanted to say thank you so much. And I'm now expanding my rabbitry, and next is quail. Awesome. Congratulations and good job on that. I'm glad to hear that you find the videos helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up tonight. A little tired. It's been a busy week at work. So I'm going to go have some dinner with my wife, and then I'm going to go to bed and get up and go to work tomorrow and do one more day before the weekend. So thanks for joining tonight. Always a good time to hang out with you guys. Hopefully we'll be back next week. I don't see any reason why I won't be. We'll just have to wait and see, though. Hopefully we'll see you guys all again there. In the meantime, again, thanks for watching, and as always, God bless.